Military governance in Africa has always had a bad reputation. This is because of the history of chaos and instability that past African military governments have sowed in their respective countries. Perhaps this is why some people are reluctant to give the military leaders of the Sahel region the benefit of the doubt. But President Traoré of Burkina Faso is changing this narrative. Most military governance is more of discipline, order, and strategy, but Traoré is adding something unique, which some argue can only be found in a civilian government. Recently, President Traoré paid a visit to one of the most important towns in Ouagadougou, Barsalogho. But this was not just a normal visit. Traoré made this visit to do something extraordinary. So what did he do? Let's find out. For those of you who have forgotten, the Burkinabe town of Barsalogho made headlines a few months ago after experiencing a devastating attack from terrorist groups. Barsalogho is a very important town in Burkina Faso because it houses the last standing military force between terrorist groups and the capital city, Ouagadougou. Unfortunately, it was subjected to a horrific attack by jihadists that left more than 309 people killed and many more injured. But guess what? The Barsalogho attack was not the usual kind of terrorist operation. Think about it. How did the terrorists successfully attack a town that is very close to the capital city? How were they not noticed by the Burkinabe military? The only way this could have happened was if it was an inside job. It's a sad thing to say, but the Barsalogho attack was indeed an inside job. While President Traoré has been working hard to ensure the safety of the citizens and an improvement in the security of the country, some internal forces who only care about power and personal interest were working behind his back to sabotage everything. It was a few weeks after the Barsalogho attack that the Burkinabe military under the leadership of Traoré uncovered a deadly plot to destabilize Burkina Faso. This was shocking, but what was even more shocking was the fact that the Barsalogho attack was part of this deadly plot. According to the reports, those involved in this plot include some Burkinabe civilians, military personnel, and former military officials, all of whom are supported by Western intelligence agencies. Civil society actors and economic operators in Burkina Faso were also involved in the plot. This means that it was all internal. Those people, especially Burkinabe politicians who have been demanding a return to civilian rule, were also part of the plot. Tell me, how can people with such a diabolical mindset rule a country in peace and progress? The truth is that if these people truly wanted the best for Burkina Faso, they would work with Traoré to improve the security of Burkina Faso, which is of utmost priority. But these people do not truly care about Burkina Faso and its citizens. You see, the masses of Burkina Faso are the most affected by the insecurity in the country. These politicians and military officers live in their big mansions in the cities, far away from the threat of terrorists, and can even afford to travel if the situation gets worse. This is the reason why they could conveniently sacrifice the people of Barsalogho for their selfish benefit. Before we proceed, here is a reminder to like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe to our channel if you have not done so already. Now, the most shocking part of the plot was that it was orchestrated by the former military junta of Burkina Faso, Paul-Henri Damiba, who was ousted by President Traoré. Interestingly, Damiba was not in the country when the attack occurred. You see, after Traoré ousted him from power, Damiba fled to Togo to seek refuge and immunity. He has been there all these while, angry at Traoré. So, he decided to create a plan to overthrow Traoré. If it was just a plan to orchestrate a coup that would remove Traoré from power, that would be a bit understandable. But Damiba couldn't just create such a simple plan because he knew that Traoré had the support of Burkinabe citizens. So, he decided to remove that support by creating fear in the hearts of the citizens and creating the narrative that Traoré was not good enough to lead. This was the whole reason for the Barsalogho attack. By attacking a town close to the capital city of Burkina Faso, Damiba tried to create the narrative that Traoré's military strategy was not working. But the only reason why this worked is because Damiba still has supporters inside amongst the Burkinabe military and Burkinabe politicians. You see, when Damiba was in power, one of the first things he did was to increase his salary and that of the ministers who worked with him. This already tells what kind of man he is, a corrupt man who would use the Burkinabe public funds to fuel his desires. When he was ousted, some of those ministers remained in Burkina Faso, so it's not a surprise that they would want him to return. Damiba's return to power would mean that they would have access to wealth and power which they do not have under Traoré's rule. If you recall, under Traoré's rule, the salaries of ministers were slashed and the funds were used for some development projects. As for those Burkinabe politicians, it's not a surprise that they collaborated with Damiba. Damiba had probably promised them a return to civilian rule if he returned to power. These politicians only want a return to civilian rule so that they continue with the way things have been. But thankfully, Traoré and his loyal team were able to uncover everything. According to the reports, these ministers and former military officials working with Damiba contacted the JNIM terrorist group and gave them the necessary information to attack Barsalogho. Imagine that. The group employs a strategy of exploiting local and social divisions in the territories it controls and appealing to groups that perceive themselves to be marginalized, such as the Tuareg and Fulani people. In other words, these guys go to local communities which are oftentimes far from the influence of the government of the country and who feel that they are left out from what's happening in the country. Once the JNIM members get to these communities, they instigate them to hate the government, promise to protect and provide for them, and give them arms to launch attacks against those that refuse to stand with them. Most of the times, the local population are forced to comply even against their wishes because it might result in their death if they say no. So, these JNIM members become integrated into these communities, acting as leaders and even marrying into the community. This has been confirmed by several security analysts that have observed and analyzed their behaviors and tactics. According to these analysts, JNIM also targets government infrastructure like water storage and power plants. And then they act as a government in these areas, providing the locals with amenities, signing agreements with local leaders, and recruiting from those populations to boost their ranks. JNIM has been responsible for several large-scale attacks across Burkina Faso and Mali, targeting not just local people, but also the military and those it considers sympathetic to the government of the country. It is this group that Damiba's supporters contacted to attack the Barsalogho town. Investigations also revealed that they plan to target the presidential palace, a drone site, the Ouagadougou airport, and military positions in Mangadara before they were caught. The question is, will a genuinely good leader who cares for the interest of his people take such actions? The answer is no. Now, since the attack, the people of Barsalogho have been subdued, living in fear of another attack. This is understandable because they have always believed that they were safe from terrorist attacks. But the attacks a few months ago changed everything. Now, after the attacks, Traoré sent a message of consolation to the people of Barsalogho and the soldiers guarding the town. But Traoré felt that a message was not enough. So, he decided to pay a visit to Barsalogho. But it wasn't a mere visit to see how bad the situation was. Traoré's presence in Barsalogho was to give hope and reaffirm his commitment to the people and the soldiers of the town. In his speech, Traoré dropped his typical military command voice and spoke with a calm resolve that stirred the hearts of everyone listening. Speaking to the soldiers, Traoré started by telling them that more needs to be done in terms of security despite the progress that has been made. He went on to tell them to move away from past losses and stay vigilant. The fact that they could uncover the plot and stop any further damage is a great victory that should be celebrated. Traoré went on to encourage them to keep their hope alive and continue to remain committed to the cause. He reminded them of their duty to keep the citizens of Burkina Faso safe from harm. Traoré's speech resonated so much with the soldiers and the people of Barsalogho. Following Traoré's visit, the once subdued town of Burkina Faso has come alive. The soldiers now have the morale and passion to continue their job while the people have begun to go about their daily activities. Lives were lost in the town, but things have begun to go back to the way they were. This is remarkable. Indeed, President Traoré is not the typical military leader. Traoré's visit to Barsalogho shows his emotional commitment to the people. Many people think that the military is all about governing like a dictator, but Traoré is changing this narrative. It's no wonder then that when Traoré's transition government wanted to end in June, the people of Burkina Faso came out to pledge their support to Traoré. The Burkinabe people have very much enjoyed the leadership of Ibrahim Traoré, so much that on May 11th, thousands of Burkinabes gathered at the municipal stadium in Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou, to show their support for Traoré's extension of the transition period. This was a historic event. The fact is that it is very rare in African countries for citizens to take to the streets en masse and demand the current government continue to rule. In fact, this has never happened in the past 20 years. But that was exactly what happened in Burkina Faso. What is interesting is that the thousands who gathered included not only local residents of Burkina Faso, but also activists and visitors from neighboring Sahel countries. This means that those who believe that it was Ibrahim Traoré who inspired the Burkinabe people to support him are completely wrong. If that were the case, he would not be able to influence people outside of Burkina Faso. These people, including activists both in and outside Burkina Faso, came to support Traoré because they knew how committed and dedicated he is to his country. Thousands of citizens gathered to support Mr. Traoré, but the Western media did not report this news. Why? This only proves that these media platforms are used to control the coverage of African countries to suit the interests of Western countries. Conversely, imagine if citizens came together not to support Traoré's regime, but to demand its end and an early transition to civilian rule. You can be sure that Western media would be the first to pick up and spread this. It is clear that Burkina Faso does not want the world to know that they love their military president and do not want a civilian president, because that would prove that democracy, which has always been touted by Western countries as the best form of government for any country, may simply not be the best. But they forget that it has nothing to do with the system of governance, but rather with the type of leader. Democracy, monarchy, or communist systems of government play no role. For Africans who have suffered for decades under democratic governments, a strong, patriotic leader who is willing to defend their interests is more important, and that is exactly what President Traoré has been doing since coming to power. "We are determined to protect the Burkina Faso people," said Rasmane Ouagadougou, chief coordinator of the Burkina Faso Black African Defense League, on the eve of the rally. Ouagadougou also warned his compatriots about hostile forces that will try to disrupt the rally and called on Burkinabéans to be vigilant. "Any attempt to disrupt the event will be punished," he said. "Any attack on this event is an attack on Colonel Ibrahim Traoré and his government, and therefore on the sovereign people of Burkina Faso. Such acts will be considered a betrayal of the state and will be severely punished." The Burkina Faso National Coordination Body for the National Initiative said the rally should be a historic and celebratory event. This means that a lot of preparation went into holding the rally. On the day of the vote, thousands of Burkina Faso locals, activists, and visitors from other countries came to support Traoré's government. As reported by an African Initiative correspondent, the organizers of the rally consider the elections unacceptable for maintaining peace in the country and are calling for constitutional reform for the complete liberation and revitalization of the country. Local civil society leaders shouted, "We don't want to hear another president. We don't want elections." But why? Well, since the death of Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso has suffered under the rule of incompetent and greedy leaders who only cared about their own interests and those of the West. But since Traoré came to power, he has put the country on a great path. Just look at what he has achieved in Burkina Faso, especially in agriculture. According to Ghislaine Dabiri, a member of the National Coordination of Citizens Watch Associations, said that with the acquisition of a significant number of tractors, plowing equipment, seeds, and agricultural inputs for the 2024 agricultural campaign, Burkina Faso is heading straight towards food self-sufficiency. People of Burkina Faso, for more than 60 years, we have long been made to understand that a certain number of crops such as wheat could not be produced in Burkina Faso. But today, with Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso is included on the list of wheat-producing countries. But that is not all he has achieved in Burkina Faso's agricultural sector. In 2023, Traoré launched two major agricultural programs, the Agro-Pastoral Offensive and the Presidential Initiative for Food Self-Sufficiency, and several initiatives were implemented to achieve the objectives of these programs. In February 2024, an emergency project to increase agricultural production in Burkina Faso was launched in collaboration with the African Development Bank Group, providing $38.4 million to ensure Burkina Faso's food security amid the growing impact of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In March, instead of buying exotic cars like other leaders do, Traoré spent 78 billion CFA francs on purchasing farm machinery such as tractors and agricultural inputs such as seeds and fertilizers. This unwavering commitment to the agricultural sector is the result of Traoré's vision of a Burkina Faso that is self-sufficient in its food supply. In addition to agriculture, Traoré is also working to boost the potential of the country's mining sector. In 2023, Traoré banned the export of gold to bring order to the gold mining sector. To this end, he built a gold refinery and a mine waste plant that will help create value and jobs for the people of Burkina Faso. Like his leader Thomas Sankara, Traoré has rejected the presidential salary and has also cut the salaries of Burkina Faso's politicians. According to him, it is not right that a small number of people are earning millions of CFA francs while millions in the country are struggling to buy the basic necessities of life. He not only spoke about cutting politicians' salaries, but also said that the whole system needs to be balanced and fixed in order for society to be stable. In terms of security, Traoré has been working hard to make Burkina Faso safe again, procuring weapons and military equipment, equipping soldiers, and working with other armies, including Russia and the Sahel alliance. These and many other successes have been achieved since Traoré took power. It is no wonder that Burkina Faso was ranked as one of the best governed countries in Africa in the Global Governance Index earlier this year, outperforming many other civilian government countries. Indeed, the results do not lie. So, it doesn't matter what some people say. Traoré is the best leader that Burkina Faso has ever had in recent times. He may be a military leader, but his commitment to the progress of Burkina Faso is exactly what the people of Burkina Faso need right now. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video, drop a comment, and share.